Welcome to Bleav in Chargers. And Lo, we don't have a regular season wrap as a standalone. Instead, we have a regular season wrap looking to a playoff preview. And man, that is exciting. The Bolts finished the regular season 11-5, 11 wins in Jim Harbaugh's inaugural season following a 5-12 campaign. The past year, very similar to what he did in San Francisco, went from 6 wins to 13. Here we go, 5-11 and a wild card berth and a date with the Houston Texans on Saturday. That'll be a 1:30 p.m. Pacific kick. And the Bolts are favored by 2.5. And I think a lot of people feel pretty good about this matchup.
Yeah, they do. And it's just interesting, just Bleav. If you watch a guy in Harbaugh and you watch other coaches in the league, they just have an effect. Certain guys can walk into a building or walk into a team and it just oozes and permeates their DNA. And you just watch the way this guy, like you talk about, 5-11 last year, didn't have a necessarily great season. And a guy walks in with pretty much the same characters, made some changes, got some guys, some misfits, guys that were injured, Dobbins, the different running backs, and said, I'm going to rekindle your career, and say, we know that there's potential. We know something there, but everyone else has forgotten about you, but we haven't. Look what he's done. He goes out and drafts McConkey, and look at all the Q, and look at these guys, the Qs, the guys that fell off that a lot of people said wrote them off, that said, they didn't perform. They don't have it. They won't be successful in this league. These are bad picks. Yelled at front office. Thought front office did a bad thing. And watching this guy galvanize these guys and speak life and show repetitions and stay consistent and get guys for the buy-in. I know we're talking about playoffs, but this is just amazing what this man with his Spheres influence money has created a culture that looks like it's going to continue on the trajectory of ascending.
That's a good place to start, Lo, because like you said, you're talking. There's one thing when coaches come in and look. I know I've taken shots at the guy, and I don't mean to do it here, but I think just to paint a parallel between two, or I should say, to create the difference between the two. Sean Payton goes into Denver, never embraces Russell Wilson, basically announces to the world that this is not my guy. He is not going to run the offense. I'm going to run my offense. He doesn't run it right, and there's just this conflict, right? As soon as he shows up, and a lot of, and I'm not, again, that happens a lot where they say, oh, you know what? It's not his guy. So quarterback probably not going to play. And you think about how embattled Quentin Johnston was in his rookie year and how that pick was viewed and how much incoming Tom Telesco and Brandon Staley and everybody took for that selection, considering what Jordan Addison had done and Zay Flowers had done and Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporte and the other candidates for that selection happened to do their rookie year. And Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh could have distanced themselves and said, hey, look, we're bringing in our guys and it's just going to be an open competition and whoever gets those, and what did they do? We love Q. First thing Joe Ortiz said was if they had taken Zay, we were probably taking Q. We thought that highly of him. What did Jim Harbaugh say? He's one of the hardest workers, one of my favorite guys. We expect him to do great things this year, and celebrated him and leaned into it and took ownership of Quentin Johnston and didn't try to distance themselves. And that goes a long way. Joey Bosa, who had been perennially injured. And what does coach say the second he shows up? Well, obviously Joey did him helped him a little bit by taking that $7 million pay cut, but immediately says, Joey's one of the leaders of this team. We're going to go as far as Joey goes. Like that. He's back because we believe in it. There's just so much. There was so much to set the tone, so much positivity, so much belief from the head coach, from the front office in these guys that maybe they had started to lose a little bit of belief in themselves. Derwin James, after his worst season in his career in 2023, and just the showering of praise from Coach Minner and Harbaugh, like it really did, I think, set the tone, lay a foundation for where we're at today at 11-6 and sitting in the number 5 slot being favored in a playoff game.
Yeah, no question. And to add on with Joey Bosa, here's a guy that could have said, no, and you know it and I know it. He could have got more money and could have got more incentives. He could have went somewhere because of his name, it probably got more money. But he said, do I really want to take this trip? Because Harbaugh, like you said, they leaned into this guy and he bought in. You see he's been more available this year, even though he's had some hiccups. You just see the way this team is doing. And I'm excited about this upcoming game. You and I were seeing it to a 2-point favorite. And this is a team that's playing good football.
Yeah.
It's sort of like watching these guys play. You saw with the Raiders. You had two head coaches that, you know what? You can't say that the Raiders head coach didn't have the bravado, didn't want to win, or worked hard. But it's this different level of knowledge. It's a different level. Guys believed in it, but just he couldn't get his guys to perform for him the way that Antonio wanted them to. But you just see two different guys and two teams going in two different directions. But both guys, both are headstrong, both are wanting to win. But it comes down to there's a different element that Harbaugh has to separate from Antonio. Antonio was a hell of a player. You watch him on the sideline, he's yelling, he's got vibes, got all that stuff, but it's not able to transition to the field. And that's what you love about Harbaugh. And that's why I'm looking to this matchup, because you have a coach and, you watch the Houston Texans and seeing what they've done and how the guys follow their coach. I mean, he had a great year last year, but right now they're a little bit reeling. They go to Tennessee. He makes them play. He wants to get them back, believing. And you have give coach some kudos to saying, I'm not going to sit these guys. We're in the playoffs. We can't improve our spot, but I want them to come into the playoffs with a win, with a winning taste in their mouth. Though I think the Chargers are better, you understand what D'Amico Ryans did to say, I want to change the way these guys view themselves heading to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think, so much of it, and you can speak to it better than I can because you played low and you know how important it is with what's asked of you by the men that are leading you and what you expect from them. And, Harbaugh has never wavered for a single second this season from what his identity is, what he believes the identity of his football team is. Just kind of think about the punting. Like, how often he punts early in the game. He had a 4th and less than a football on that opening drive.
Yeah.
And he could have said, you know what, let's go for it. He's at his own 30, what was he at? His own 29-yard line, 29 3/4 is where he was. You got a 6'6", 240-pound quarterback. You could easily have seen him saying, let's go for it. But that's not him. We have the number 1 scoring defense in the league. It's the first 3 minutes of the game. We are not a panic team. That's not who we are. We don't make irrational decisions, no matter what analytics say and what that's at. No, this is our identity. Our identity is tread water, man. Body blows. That's what we are. So we are going to punt on 4th and inches from our own 29 in the opening on the opening series, even though we have Justin Herbert and J.K. Dobbins and the offense has been humming and scoring 40 and 34 points in our last 2 games. That's our identity. Our identity is to punt the ball and to continue to inflict pain on the opposing team's offense, and we'll get the ball right back to our offense. And sure enough, what do? They do, and they get the field goal. And, fine. Like, to me, that goes so far. Like, Brandon Staley was celebrated his first year for being aggressive, and that was his identity. And it bit him in week 18 when he attempted to go for it in that contest against the Raiders. They didn't get it on their own 20 whatever. And I was fine with the decision. Everybody was throwing, was killing him for it. And I was like, that's who the guy's been all year. And it's something that the players have leaned into, that Justin Herbert leaned into, that Keenan Allen leaned into. And then the very next year, man, we saw it early. He punts in that. And I was like, oh no, man, he's listening. He's letting it get to him, man. And that's not his identity. His identity is aggressive, foot on the gas all the time, go for it. And Harbaugh has never wavered. And remember, there were a couple games there where he punted. I think it was the Chiefs game where he punted from the Chiefs side of the field on like their 42 or something like that. It was a 4th and 1 or a 4th and 2. And he was asked, he was like, why would, the analytics say that's like a 70% go. And he was like, it's just not what we do. We punt there and we play defense and we play the field position game. And he's just been so static. And I think that goes such a long way when adversity strikes, like in the Tampa game, for them to be able to bounce back after a tough first half against Denver.
Oh, no question. And you got to love that about your coach, that he just say, look, I'm going to do what I need to do. And at times you'll see him go for it on 4th down. And I think that a lot of it does with Herbert. If he knows that Herbert's feeling great and it's 4th and a yard or less, and you can go anywhere on the field, and you tell the guys, it's very, very hard to stop a 6'4", 240, 50-pound quarterback, but he does it sparingly. Like you said, he is not going to early. He might not do it later. He's going to do it. And he's very methodical with this thought process. Like you said, he's like, no, this is not the time.
Yeah, it's an identity, and it's been there all season long. We've talked about it. It's get into the fourth, and that's what's potentially. I don't want to pretend like it's a given or it's a guarantee, because it's not. The playoffs are weird, and weird things can happen. Look at Green Bay and Dallas last year, the way the Texans handled the Browns weird things happen, right? But the one thing, the way this lines up is if chalk holds outside of the 5 beating the 4, but the Chargers are favored and they have a better record than the Texans, so it's not really who should be in the 4 versus who should be in the 5. But their first 2 matchups could be the Texans and the Chiefs. And they're 2 teams that have not had prolific offenses all season long, that have scored in the low 20s. And here comes a team that's the number 1 scoring defense in the league at 17.7. And that's what they want. Just give us a shot, man. Give us a chance in the fourth quarter. Let's keep it a 1-score game. And if we can get to that final 6-7 minutes, all that prep in training camp, all the OT period, the fourth quarter period, we're training harder and we're doing this in training camp in full pads, full practices every single day for this moment, for these moments in time, in the postseason, in the final 5 minutes of the game. So mentally, we walk out on that field and say, they can't touch us. They haven't done what we've done. They haven't put in the work that we've put in. And you have that mental advantage. You have that ability to go out on those final 2 drives, one on defense, one on offense, and win because of that belief that was implemented all the way back in minicamp and then, of course, through the 4 weeks of training camp.
Oh, no question. And that's what Harbaugh, he does. He takes pride on that. He said, hey, guys, we're going to practice hard, but I'm going to give you rest. He understands, look, because he played the game. He understands, I'm going to push these guys, and they think that, okay, I'm going to break them. And then he knows when to pull back. You watch those guys coming out the training camp, watching these guys go through the strength and conditioning after practice. They're doing 1-arm push-ups, crawling, doing bear crawls, watching. These are for those moments, those little integral parts of the body, watching guys' injuries go down because they work in the finite parts of their body and pushing guys through that wall, saying, here's the wall, we're at the wall, we're going to kick this wall down. That's what they've done. This 11-5 season. I mean, you think about the Chargers, a team, when you think about it, you say, okay, Chargers going on the road in their favor. The Steelers are going on the road to Baltimore, and it's probably a 6 or 7 point line.
I think it's 7. And the Broncos are 8.5 or something. Yeah.
But you look at those and you're like, man, so the only road team that's favored is the Chargers. That should tell you something. It shows you where the Houston's at. It tells you where the Chargers are. And it's just matchups. So I look at this game as, hey, look, Harbaugh's going to have these guys ready to play. Thoughts and prayers with, everyone in LA proper, with all the fires, and to you too, Money. Just hope the guys can get the rest. Hope the guys, I know they got loved ones in this area. Hope that, they're just focused and, let people take care of those things so they can go out and play football. And that's the thing that I pray and I hope that everyone's healthy, because there is a lot of things that people don't know that you guys are, people are dealing with, and you have to leave your loved ones or wife or kids behind and dealing with, a tragedy that's going on in Southern California as well, too.
Yeah, no doubt. And sometimes we forget they're humans as well. I mean, no question about that. They have stuff going on. And I think it's something I learned in a hurry when I was calling college football games. And, I would have people hit me on social media like, what a dunce. Can you believe this? I'm like, he's an 18-year-old kid, man. Who knows what's going on in freaking business, math for calculus for business, class, or what his girlfriend's doing, or the fact that his buddies told him they don't like hanging out with him. Like, there's just so much going on. You have no idea. And yes, certainly with the devastation of the Palisades fire, it's brutal down here, man. It's gnarly, and we want to make sure, everybody, or we hope that everybody's safe. We're thinking of you and sending you positive energy, and hope that things work out. I lived through the Malibu fires, and it was a shame. We lived in this crappy house on PCH that 4 college kids rented, and it was a dump. And every house behind us that was families and raised kids in it burned to the ground, and somehow ours stayed, and it was just terrible. And it's so reminiscent of that I'm watching what's going on in the Palisades now. So certainly, as we are, the Bleav in Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers, our thoughts are with you. In the community, and we hope all of you stay safe, and that these Santa Anas tamp down, and we can get this thing put out sooner than later. Sadly, it's something that, we've lived through since I've been here in 1991, over and over again. There's a fire somewhere. And you think about the Paradise Fire a couple of years ago, and just it keeps showing up. So please stay safe, everyone. And to your point, Lo, though, to get back to it, and it's such a testament to you, the player, that it's easier for me. It's still hard for me to do, but it's almost impossible for you to get your idea around a 17-game season. You keep saying 11-5. You keep saying 5-11. Like you can't do it. It's too hard for you to do the math. So you've done it 3 times. I have. They're like 15 minutes, and it's funny. Like you're like, ain't no way I'm playing another game. Heck no. It speaks to what it's like to go through a football season and the idea of playing one more regular season game.
And it kills these guys. And the short weeks. I mean, of course, could I do it? Of course I could. But it's just like, look at these guys. Sometimes they're playing on a Saturday and then turn around playing again on Wednesday. Yeah. I mean, the turnarounds, they're playing on Sunday and then Thursday. It's crazy what the human body can do and what they're asked to do. But when you look at this game, though, anything's changed? To the listeners out there, the team leaving on Thursday or they leaving Friday? What's the team schedule? We're
going early. We're going Thursday. So certainly coach, I think, wants to get there, wants to settle in. He's been a leave 2 days early guy. Once it's past basically Kansas City East is Kansas City was the line of demarcation, if you will, for the day before trip. But to me, it's playoffs. And for him, he's like, it's close enough. We're kicking off at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Let's go ahead and maybe, or I should say, what is it? No, kicking off at 1:30 Pacific time. So you're all right there. But I think for him, it's probably just get settled. Let's just focus on football. Let's get out Thursday. We're leaving late Thursday afternoon. So normally we leave kind of mid-morning.
Sure.
This time we're leaving a little bit later in the afternoon. So we'll get there, get to Houston late Thursday night, have all day Friday to focus, and then get up and get a win on Saturday. Get a win at Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for online betting in 2025. If you're a seasoned fan, a first-time bettor, Bet Online has got your ultimate game day companion. That's what they are. They are the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC. Number one sports betting source for the new year is Bet Online. Touchdowns, three-pointers, hat tricks. They got you covered at Bet Online for every game, every play, and every win. Bet Online. The game starts here. As for the matchup, the key is health, right?
Right.
And you got J.K. Dobbins back. You saw what Quentin was able to do. I mean, it's health and momentum, right? So Will Dissly is back. The offensive line, you had Trey out there. He had to leave on a cart, but came back later in the game. It was great to see that. Pip on the offensive line. Slater's fine.
Slater's good?
Slater's good. He's back in practice.
Okay.
So good there. And Herbert's looked as good as he has all season these last 3 games, which is the most important part. Derwin obviously has been fine all year, but Joey and Khalil are out. Like the team, if you just take sort of Asante Samuel off the board, who was your starting corner at the start of the season, and obviously Elijah Molden, who was a huge part, but also a huge part because he was starting in the spot where Alohi Gilman was starting. Alohi played a great game against the Raiders. So to have Alohi back, at least that helps sort of take the sting out of that. They're healthy. They're healthy, and they're playing the best football. The team is these last 10 quarters, the full game against the Patriots, against the Raiders, and the second half against the Broncos. And what the offense has done, scoring 34, 40, and 34 points. I mean, you feel very good about where this team is heading into the postseason. There is very little to point to that you would circle as a negative the last 2.5 games they've played.
Sure. Money, when you're looking at the Texans, and, of course, they have Diggs, the receiver, which is probably out. So when you think about where is the Texans' advantage? So let's just get kind of a matchup. If you were just say, look, I'm outside looking in, where do you give the Texas, if they had a slight advantage or any advantage, where would those spots be offensively and defensively?
Yeah, I think it's just defense is what you're looking at, Lo. You got 2 really, really good edge rushers in Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. The good news is Chargers have 2 really, really good tackles in Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. So you're talking about strength on strength. Their secondary has been very good. Stingley and Sturgis, their rookie corners. I think they got, I got their stats right here. I Bleav each of them have 5 interceptions if I'm right. So they take the ball away. Let's see. Sturgis. Yeah, Stingley's got 5. Oh, I'm sorry, Sturgis. Kalen Bullock has got 5. So Kalen Bullock is who I'm thinking of. And I don't know where Sturgis came from. But yes, you're talking about a safety, a corner. Their defensive backs play well.
Okay.
Kamar Lassiter's been good. So Jimmy Ward, I think, is out. I Bleav he's out for the year. And they're, offensively, they've just been ravaged. Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell. Now, Nico Collins is still a problem. He is an explosive receiver, and Jim Harbaugh knows it well because he's a Michigan guy that Harbaugh coached up. Their offensive line, even though Laramie Tunsil last year was in the conversation as the best tackle in the league, has been terrible this year. It's, for whatever reason, it's regressed. Some people are pointing to the play calling of Bobby Slowick. I don't know what it is, but you got a quarterback that's taken 52 sacks this season and thrown 12 interceptions. So take advantage of that with this front. Take advantage of the linebacker position. Joe Mixon's run the ball well. Last week, Dameon Pierce ran the heck out of the ball. He got most of the carries as they were resting Mixon for the playoff game. But they run the ball well. Stroud is certainly last year put on film some pretty darn impressive games, especially you think about that playoff game he had against the Browns. So he's done it in the postseason. At the same time, they're just not playing good football right now. Offensively, they are not playing good football at all. And it all starts up front. And so I think you give the edge to the Chargers, certainly. Chargers D versus the Texans O. I think on paper, you would go advantage Chargers. Chargers offense versus Texans defense, I think it comes down to that front. Can you hold those edges long enough for Herbert to take advantage? Because look, there have been games where it's been tough to throw the ball against man coverage. And, I think you're starting to see, though, the full complement of weapons these last few games. What Ladd McConkey, because, look, he was drawing a ton of double teams in that Raider game, and Herbert made him pay with Q, just made him pay, and was like, all right, well, if you're going to take Ladd away, I'm just going to keep feeding Q over here, and he's going to catch the ball 13 times for 186 yards.
Right. But when you think about what the Texans have, haven't had a lot of amicable amount of success, we talk about up front, the trenches where Chargers have, somewhat of advantage. Do you see Harbaugh changing anything? Because is this a Texan team you think that's going to try to run the ball and say, look, let's just run the ball. They're not a team that wants to necessarily light it up the last couple of weeks they have, but try to keep this close. Do you see Texans try to take that approach to say, we got the crowd, run the ball?
I think they have to. And I don't think you can drop CJ back 40 times and expect to win. They're, like I said, with that offensive line, and we focus so much on the edges, and we should, right? We should focus on Khalil and Joey and Thule and Bud Dupree. But that's overlooking the interior. I mean, what Tier Tart's been able to do. He might, like I've said it before, he might have the best get off on the team. What Poona Ford is doing, what Morgan Fox is doing up there. Like, Tito has been great against the run. Like, they set the edges against the run really well with Khalil and Joey. They got eaten up a little bit in a few games, and I think that skewed the numbers, which is why if you're out there listening to a lot of national shows, they're probably not watching a lot of game in, game out, or they're not dissecting game in, game out. They're just taking sort of overall numbers. And I understand that's fine. It's a 17-game sample, but I think for those of us that have watched every minute and every snap, we recognize, got away from them against Baltimore because you're going up against Derrick Henry. It got away from them against the Bengals with Chase Brown, and it got away from them certainly against the Bucs with Bucky Irving and Rashad White a little bit. But, and then in the first half, you think about Estime and Williams against the Broncos. But really overall, like the Najee numbers are misleading. It's really just one sort of missed play that got him an explosive. And I know that sounds a little, I hate doing that, but at the same time, they were stout and then just so much unraveled in that game with Herbert getting injured and Slater getting injured, and things just kind of got away from him. And that's sort of, where those numbers came from. So what I'm getting at is overall, you're going to hear people say, EPA against the run, or to me, I think they're fine. I think this team is fine against the run, especially against this team where they can focus. They can commit resources to that particular part of their offense and not feel too threatened about what they might do with the air attack because of just how decimated they are, without Tank Dell and Steph Diggs. So, Schultz is still a really good tight end. I think he got 85 targets. Nico's got 99, haven't played just 12 games, but still getting 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's dangerous.
Right.
And to me, it's just, And they like explosives. Like that's what
Right.
they like.
Big plays.
So if you can take away those explosives, which they've pretty much done most of the season, you're fine.
Right.
You're fine. That's what you have to take away. To force this team to just tick their way down the field, you're going to create turnovers. You're going to force them to get off schedule and get some punts. That to me is, if they can get them in explosives, then it's a problem. But we haven't really seen anybody do that this year. They did it in Tampa. And remember what coach said after that. He's like, yeah, we've given up 4 50-plus plays all year, and they got back-to-back 50-yard plays with that Bucky Irving run and that Mike Evans completion. And we got to respond from that. And they did. And from that moment, they did.
They did. And I think that this is a game, Bleav it or not, I think the Chargers are going to be able to rotate a lot of different guys and stay fresh for next week. I think when you're playing against a Houston team that, like you said, has been reeling, haven't really gotten it together, can't necessarily score a lot of points. They have been inconsistent on offense, the run game, the pass game. Your quarterback's getting hit, been sacked a lot. They're fragile, and their head coach knows they're fragile. So that's why I just think this is a big game, big opportunity for the Chargers to jump on them. And if you can jump on this team, really put together, be physical, but jump on them. Don't change what you do, but jump on them. If it's running, if it's passing, don't let this team stick around. You have an opportunity. This team, they haven't been scoring a lot. And if you can jump there, you make them play from behind, you can pin your ears back. Make this team one-dimensional. That's what I like to see. So a lot of guys rotate and then head into Kansas City. So this is a game that you're looking forward to, a game the Chargers are favored. The pundits out there, they got them favored by 2.5, 2 points. So everyone knows that this is a team that looks like it's on the right side. It's going to Houston. Harbaugh's going to have these guys ready to play. And I think another part of this game that we don't talk about enough is the special teams in field position. I think Dicker, the kicker, this guy's, of course, missed that one. I was like, okay, they jinxed him on the air. I'm watching, listening to it, and like, he's getting perfect. And also, he missed one a little wide left. But you watch this guy just going through the process. He's money. He is a guy that's going to get you some points. That's going to just be consistent. He's going to be big in these playoffs.
It's funny. I'm glad you said that about Dicker because it just jogged my brain. Caleb Sturgis was the kicker. He was the Chargers kicker in 2018 when they went through, holy cow, man, 2017 through 2018 when they got Badgley finally and settled that position down. They went through, started with Younghoe Koo in 17, and who's now a great kicker in the league, but missed that field goal against Miami, missed the field goals in Denver. And then he was out. And then you had Travis Coons. Remember that? He came in. I know Nick Novak was the guy that, the old vet. They brought him in to settle it down. There was a guy, I don't want to mention his name, but he was sitting on the sideline actually in actual tears after a game. And I was like, it's unfortunate and you can't have that. But that's how bad it got. So I'm sorry. A sidebar. When you said Dicker, I was like, oh, yeah, Caleb Sturgis was the Chargers kicker for like a couple games.
Because you know how serious it is. You know how important it is. That's why you're.
Exactly. But yeah, Dicker. So Dicker sets the record. I think I have it right here. Hold on. Let me pull it up. Dicker sets the record for 150 points. That is franchise record, 39 field goals, 33 extra points, most points scored in a single season by a kicker in team history, second most points scored by any player. Of course, LaDainian's historic campaign that will stand forever. No one's ever going to touch that number. So yeah, when you're in a tight game, it helps to have a kicker that you trust implicitly. He missed that first one, that 51-yarder. And from that moment, when he missed that field goal, the Chargers went on to score on 7 consecutive possessions. The second week in a row, they scored on 7 consecutive possessions. And we know what they did in that second half against the Broncos, scored on, I think, 5 consecutive possessions to put the Broncos away. The other thing I would say about this game, and I think you hit on it, Low, is in the playoffs, just take away their hope, take away their belief as quickly as you can. You're on the road. It's going to be packed. There's going to be a ton of energy in that building. They know what they did last year in the wild card round to the Browns, and they're going to do everything they can to make the crowd and the setting an issue. And if you can go in and you can build a 2-score lead as quickly as possible, create a turnover maybe, something along those lines, and try to remind them not of the last game they played against Tennessee, but of the Christmas Day debacle, Baltimore 31-2, and just try to really just snatch any sense of hope or possibility they might have early on. And And look, just it's win in advance.
Exactly.
Ultimately, that's what it is. But if there is a way to continue to play the way they have these last 10 quarters and you can pour it on, man, it sure would be nice to get a little bit of rest if you're going to go to Kansas City and take on a team where the majority of their starters are going to be on 24 days rest if it's a Sunday kick. Now, the nice thing is the NFL schedule makers did them a favor with the Saturday game. I know it's a short week, from the Sunday contest against the Raiders, but maybe you get that extra day.
Exactly.
You get that extra day for a team like if it's going to be Kansas City, which it sort of feels that way with the way these things have lined up, to get that extra day of rest going against a well-rested Chiefs team.
And a one extra day in football is huge. You know that playing on Sunday compared to a Monday, it's huge. Your body's just feeling that much more better. If you were to look at the two other teams that are playing in the AFC, Buffalo, of course, Denver, and the Steelers in Baltimore, which team is more likely for an upset? If you look at those two, if you said, hey, look, I think this team has a chance to upset either Buffalo or Baltimore, which team and why?
It's pretty hard, man. It's pretty hard to visualize either the Steelers or the Broncos upsetting them. Now, I think if you're doing it, you're not doing it based on what you see on paper and how these teams matched up. What you're saying is, it's Mike Tomlin. It's the Steelers. It's a divisional game. You want to play Mike Tomlin 3 times in a season? No, you most definitely don't. It's typically his teams are buttoned up. They don't get blown out. They play competitive football, but they've just been playing really bad football lately. So that while the Ravens have been a juggernaut as of late. So it's hard for me to envision that. So that would be my, how can you, what's the path for the Steelers to win? It's, that Mike Tomlin has been able to crack the Lamar Jackson riddle a couple times in the past, and he's going to be able to do it again. And TJ Watt can maybe wreck the game and create a turnover or something along those lines. And it's just that team's so good with the Henry Lamar Jackson backfield puts you into such a crisis in trying to figure out how to stop it. So I guess I would go Broncos potentially over the Bills, even though I can't really envision that, just because that defense has been so good. And, maybe Sean Payton is as great a play caller as he is, and he's really been humming this year, man. He's been coaching up Bo Nix, and he has certainly reminded everybody what a great offensive mind he is and play designer he is. So potentially maybe there's something there that he recognizes a weakness on that Bills defense, and he can get things rolling. They have 2 really good backs in Williams and Estime, and they've got good receivers in Cortland Sutton, and they've got an exceptional defense, man. That front 7 is gnarly, and you got Patrick Surtain back there. So but
that's where I'm at.
I look at Josh Allen, though, and I just go, he's a freak. He's a complete and total freak. And there is no way that guy is going to let that team lose in Buffalo. It's just not going to happen.
Right. I'm with you. I think if you said which one has a better chance of upsetting, it'd be Denver for the reasons you stated. They have a good defense. They can get after you. You've got good receivers. You have a good running game. You can throw the ball. Your quarterback is pretty mobile. You look at the Steelers, the reason why I say no, they have to be perfect. They don't score a lot. That's the thing that I don't think the Steelers, that's why I wouldn't give them the chance. And I give it more to Denver, because Denver can score. Denver can put points on the board.
Right.
The Steelers, they're showing me the inability to score with consistency. I just don't think it's there.
No, it's and I think it's just changed so much for the Ravens the last 6-8 weeks, where their defense was susceptible to the explosive play. And it's like, okay, you got George Pickens out there. Maybe you can get Jaylen Warren going. I'm not a big Najee Harris guy. Maybe you can get Jaylen Warren going a little bit, and now you can run some play action and get George Pickens downfield to take advantage of or Mike Williams, who had a couple nice catches last week against the Chiefs. Like, maybe you can get that to work. Freiermuth in the middle of but it's just they haven't. The Ravens defense is nothing like what it was at the start of the season when everyone was wondering what the heck was going on and how it got so bad. They've settled in a little bit. So
is that one's playing.
What's that?
I
don't know if Zay's going to play. I know they've said that. I haven't checked the injury report as to whether or not he's going to be back. But I think I think if I were the Chargers, I would probably go under the auspices that they're going to play the Chiefs, that the Bills and the Ravens are going to win. And that's a Chiefs team that's going to be on 3 weeks rest. And you're probably going to want to try to, let's see if you can jump this. You just want to win. Just figure out how to win, play your game, Don't start thinking about style points and all that. But if you can do what you did to the Raiders and get up 3 scores, you can do what you did against the Patriots and get up 3-4 scores, and you might be able to give Derwin and, like they did on that final drive of the Raiders, give Derwin and Dayon and Khalil and Joe, give all those guys a little bit of rest, little 5-10 minutes of rest, game time. It's going to go a long way, I think. And so I'd love to see that be a possibility, and then see if you can knock off the 2-time defending champ Super Bowl favorites the following week. But the task at hand, God, Jim Harbaugh would punch me in the throat if he heard us talking about it.
Right. No, we're focused. We're focused. It's
on Houston.
It's the Houston Texans, and that's what I want to see. I want to see these guys get off the bus and ready to go. You're going to be down there, and I think Harbaugh is going to have these guys ready to play. Mentor and the guys that they're doing, what they're doing for this defense, the offense, it's humming. You have more weapons, like you said. You've got 2 tight ends now that are capable of catching the ball. One can stretch the field. You look at the receivers; they are all honed in. They're beating man coverage. They're doubling McConkey, and other guys are making plays. Herbert's doing a great job of finding the other guys. You got J. Dobbins running hard, getting downhill. I think this team is poised. And let's start with Houston. Let's take care of that, and then we can just pull this one down, and then we can think about the Kansas City Chiefs next week.
And obviously, Lo, before we go, we got to mention the big name. Is Zeke going to play? Don't know. They signed Ezekiel Elliott to the practice squad. To me, it's a product of Gus Edwards maybe not being where they'd like him to be physically in them. And look, to me, it's such a great signing by Joe Ortiz. And it's not necessarily just for having Zeke himself. Look, Zeke can run power. Zeke can run duo in his sleep all day. And so if you're going into a 4-minute drill in the second half and you want to make sure that JK isn't taking too much of a punishment, you don't want him to get to 30 touches or something like that, you know what you can do with Zeke. But I think it's also a reminder, because maybe people weren't paying attention when he signed Eddie Jackson, when he claimed Marcus May off waivers, when they signed Tony Jefferson, when they signed Laviska Shenault or Jalen Reagor, and what he's done with the practice squad and just the churn that we've seen this year and how important it's been. You cannot minimize what in-season work Joe Ortiz has done to help this team win ball. Eddie Jackson was signed on December 23rd. He played 40 snaps on December 27th against the Patriots. That goes a long way, man, because with those guys, Derwin's still the nickel. Derwin's still the big he's still the line. He's the dime backer. Right. He's the big nickel, because you've got those safeties that you trust. And I don't think you can say enough about the job that he and his staff and Chad Alexander and everybody in that front office has done. And Zeke very well could just be the next name, where you're talking about a guy that, how Greg Roman likes to call offense, man. And how Zeke likes to run. Right. I know that the numbers haven't been great the last 2 years, but not a lot of wear on those legs. He hadn't run the ball in a few weeks now, about a month.
Right. And it's playoff time.
It's playoff time. And damn well he can identify. He's no dummy. You want to run duo with him and you want him to read that backer, he can. And if you want to run power with him, he's all about it. And he will take all those hits, and he will take all those licks, and he's a strong dude, and he'll be great on short yardage, so Dobbins doesn't have to take those hits. Right. If they maybe just feel like Hassan's done a great job this year, but if Hassan's here, Zeke might be right here. And that's all we're talking about, for those of you watching, as opposed to listening. I'm just kind of lifting my arm just a slightly. But that's what this team has been. Can we get a slight advantage with this player versus this player?
And the energy, and the energy he'll bring.
Yep. Energy, and also I overlooked one of the big things. The guy's freaking just an animal in pass pro, which is what it's all about. So that's the other thing that you're talking about is you have to be able to pass protect if you're going to be in that backfield. And it's one of the reasons why Hassan Haskins was signed, and he's back there because he's pretty darn good in pass pro too. But Zeke is an animal in it, and so is JK. So it'll be fun if he's active. It'll be. Look, do I want him to be? No. I hope Gus is happy. I hope Gus is healthy.
Right.
And he's able to go because he's put in the time in training camp. He's fought through injuries. You want him to get that reward, especially after that 43-yard run against the Broncos and what that meant for that win and for this team to be in that position. But if he's not able to go, it'd be kind of exciting to see Zeke out there.
I think it's going to be Zeke because of the fact, like you talk about, you're in the playoffs. You need somebody to be able to rock but steady. You want somebody that's been in the playoffs. You want someone that's already been proven. Zeke's going to hold onto the ball. This guy, like you said, could pass pro. He's going to bring in energy. He'll bring up a ball that guys can say, this is Zeke. So you have a guy now and that's going to just give more stability if the guys can't go. So I understand why.
Yeah, it's look, it's an exciting time.
Yes.
Are they going to win? We sure as heck hope so. It's the playoffs. Weird things happen. They're the 5 seed. To put in perspective where the Chargers are, look, 75% of 1 seeds, at least 75% of the Super Bowls, I think it's the last 25 years, have included 1 seed. So 3 out of 4. That's not great odds for the 5 seed. However, 25% of the Super Bowl champions since the year 2000, 5 of them have been the 5 seed. Tom Brady's Bucks, Aaron Rodgers' Packers, Ben Roethlisberger's Steelers, Eli Manning's Giants. Who's the 5th? The Trent Dilfer Ravens. They were all, and the reason why the 5 seed tends to do it is because oftentimes you're blocked, right? You're blocked by just it's the Vikings. You're blocked by a dominant team that wins the division, and you should be the 2 seed or the 3 seed based on record, but you got pushed down to that 5 because of how stupid the seeding is in the NFL. And that's how you end up like, well, wild card. Yeah, they were a really good team. They just happened to not win the division. And so think about the Chargers. They're a game better than the Texans. You know, they should be sitting right there in that 4 slot. Instead, they're the 5, and let's go. It's happened 5 times in the last 25 years. Why not make it a 6th?
Well, I'll tell you why, because you just brought back bad memories. You're like, why I couldn't think of that 5th team is the Baltimore Ravens, because like you said, we went 14-2 because we were the Titans, and the Ravens had to come to us, and that's the game we knew that week. We said, whoever wins this game is going to go win the Super Bowl. That's the game the Ravens end up beating us, and they beat the Giants in the Super Bowl. So, yes, we were that number 1 seed. They got beat, but thank you for reminding me. Thank you for reminding me.
Sorry about that, Lo. Hey,
only money can do that. Only money.
In your defense, you may have lost to the greatest defense in the history of the NFL. You know, sometimes you open the door and it's just a punch right to your face. There's nothing you can do about it. All right, Lo, let's get back to this thing next week. Hopefully talking about a trip to either Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, or hosting the Broncos in the divisional round. One of those 3, what would be one of those 4 options? You're either going to Baltimore, Buffalo, or Kansas City, or if every wild card team wins, actually, no, you would host the Steelers. The Broncos would then go to Kansas City. The Chargers would host the Steelers, and may it happen. May we get 2 home games. May we face the Steelers in the divisional round and the Broncos in the AFC Championship. Let's hope that all works out. Let's do that. Exactly. All right, Lo. Bleav in Chargers. We'll be back next week. We always appreciate each and every one of you, those of you being affected by these horrific fires here in Southern California, the greater LA area. Please stay safe. We're thinking about you, and hopefully we'll be back next week to maybe bring you a little slice of joy and a distraction as we talk about the Chargers moving on into the divisional round.
Sounds good. Bolt up.